Most people go to the grocery store twice a week without thinking about it. They grab their produce, scan their card, and drive home. It feels normal. It feels permanent. It's not. Supply chains are more fragile than you've ever been told. One drought, one shipping disruption, one economic shock, and those shelves go from full to empty in 72 hours. We've seen it before. We'll see it again. And when it happens, the families still eating won't be the ones with the biggest pantries. They'll be the ones who planted perennials, not annuals, not a raised bed full of tomatoes you replant every spring. Perennials, plants that come back year after year, produce food without demanding your constant attention, and keep feeding your family whether the economy is stable or in freefall. Most gardeners are still stuck in the annual mindset: plant, harvest, repeat. That's fine for a hobby. It's not a food system. A real food system is infrastructure. You build it once, and it works for you for decades. If you're watching this, you already understand that self-sufficiency isn't optional anymore, it's smart. So hit subscribe right now, because this channel is about building systems that last. And by the time we're done here, you'll know exactly which 12 plants to put in the ground to feed your family, essentially forever. These plants were chosen because they survive neglect, produce serious calories or critical nutrition, and work across most of North America. We're counting down from 12 to 1, and number 1 is the plant that almost nobody grows, but everybody should. Let's get into it. Number 12. Elderberry, the medicinal food tree that produces for 30 years. Let's start with a plant that does double duty. It feeds your family and keeps them healthy. Elderberry, Sambucus nigra or Sambucus canadensis, is a fast-growing perennial shrub that produces enormous clusters of deep purple berries every single year. Once established, it produces for 30 years or more with almost no maintenance. And in a world where fresh food and medicine are both hard to come by, elderberry is one of the most valuable plants you can grow. Here's the nutritional reality. Elderberries are extremely high in vitamin C, vitamin A, and anthocyanins, the same powerful antioxidants found in blueberries, but in higher concentrations. Studies from the University of Maryland show elderberry extract can reduce the duration and severity of upper respiratory illness by up to 4 days. When you're living off your land and medical care isn't a short drive away, that matters enormously. But elderberry isn't just medicine. The berries are calorie-dense and productive. One mature elder shrub can produce 12 to 15 pounds of berries annually. Cook them into syrup, jam, wine, or pie filling. Dry them and store them for winter. Ferment them. They don't taste great raw. Always cook or dry them, but once processed, they're delicious. The plant itself is cold-hardy to zone 3, grows in sun or partial shade, tolerates wet or dry soil, and spreads naturally by suckers, meaning it self-propagates without any help from you. Planting is straightforward. Buy 1 or 2-year-old bare root plants from a reputable nursery. Plant in spring or fall 6 feet apart, in a spot with at least 6 hours of sun. 2 plants are better than 1 for cross-pollination and heavier yields. Mulch around the base. Water during the first season. After that, forget about them. Harvest berries in late summer when the clusters turn deep purple-black. Strip them from the stems using a fork. Cook them before eating. Why it's on the list. Elderberry gives you food and immune support from one low-maintenance perennial that thrives on neglect. When both medicine and produce are hard to get, elderberry covers both needs. Number 11. Comfrey, the fertilizer factory that also feeds you. Most people have heard of comfrey, but almost no one uses it correctly. They think of it as a quote 0 or a quote 1 and nothing more. That undersells it completely. Comfrey, Symphytum officinale, is a deep-rooted perennial that grows back year after year, produces enormous amounts of nutrient-dense biomass, and can be harvested 4 to 6 times per season. The roots go down 6 feet or more, pulling up calcium, potassium, phosphorus, and nitrogen from subsoil layers that most plants can't reach. When you chop the leaves and lay them around your other plants, you're essentially applying free fertilizer made from deep soil minerals. In a survival garden where you can't buy fertilizer, comfrey is the engine that keeps everything else producing. But here's what most people skip. Comfrey leaves are edible when cooked. Young leaves, before they get rough and hairy, can be lightly battered and pan-fried like fritters. They've been eaten in Europe for centuries. They're high in protein for a leaf crop and contain vitamin B12, which is otherwise almost absent from plant-based foods. Comfrey is cold-hardy to zone 3, thrives in sun or shade, and once planted from a root cutting, it is essentially permanent. You cannot easily remove it. The roots regenerate even from small fragments. That's a warning for some gardeners. But for a survival food system, it means you will never lose this plant. Planting is effortless. Buy root cuttings and plant them 2 inches deep, 18 inches apart in spring. They'll emerge within 2 weeks. Harvest leaves by cutting the plant down to 3 inches above ground. It regrows in 4 to 6 weeks. Repeat all season long. Or why it's on the list. Comfrey is a force multiplier. It makes every other plant on this list produce better, while also providing edible leaves and long-term soil fertility. It's not optional, it's foundational. Number 10. Turkish rocket. The perennial broccoli. Nobody talks about, you want broccoli without replanting it every year. Turkish rocket, Buneus orientalis, is your answer. This little-known perennial produces edible shoots and flower buds that taste remarkably similar to broccoli, emerging in early spring when most of your garden is still dormant. It's cold-hardy to zone 3, drought-tolerant, and once established in your soil, it comes back every single spring without fail. Here's why it matters. Early spring is the hunger gap, the period between your stored winter food running low and your summer crops coming in. Most annuals won't give you fresh greens until May or June. Turkish rocket starts producing in March and April. That early harvest window can be critical when food reserves are stretched thin. The shoots and buds taste exactly like broccoli when steamed or sautéed. They're rich in vitamin C, calcium, and glucosinolates, the same cancer-fighting compounds found in all brassicas. Harvest them before the flowers open for the best flavor. Planting is simple. Sow seeds in fall or early spring directly into well-drained soil with full sun. Space plants 18 inches apart. Mulch lightly. The first year, let the plant establish without heavy harvesting. Year 2 onward, harvest shoots and buds freely every spring. The plant grows larger and more productive each year. Why it's on the list. Turkish rocket fills the hunger gap with fresh, nutrient-dense greens when nothing else is producing. It's one of the most overlooked perennial vegetables in North America. And that's a mistake you can correct today. Number 9. Lovage, the perennial celery that grows itself. If you've ever tried growing celery, you know it's one of the most demanding annual crops in the garden. It needs constant moisture, rich soil, a long growing season, and even then it's finicky. Lovage, Levisticum officinale, gives you everything celery gives you: the flavor, the stalks, the leaves, without any of that work. Lovage is a perennial herb that grows 4 to 6 feet tall, returns every year from the same root, and produces an enormous amount of celery-flavored biomass from early spring through fall. The stalks can be used exactly like celery in soups, stews, stocks, and braises. The leaves dry easily and store for years as seasoning. The seeds are a potent spice used in pickling, bread making, and spice rubs. You get 3 different ingredients from one plant that comes back forever. Lovage is cold-hardy to zone 3, tolerates partial shade, and prefers moist soil but adapts to average garden conditions. One established plant produces more celery-flavored material than most families can use in a season. You'll find yourself giving it away. Growing it is simple. Plant seeds or divisions in spring in moist, well-drained soil. Give it room, it gets big. Cut stalks and leaves as needed throughout the season. In fall, cut the whole plant back to the ground. Mulch over it. It emerges again in early spring with no help from you. Why it's on the list. Flavor matters in a long-term food scenario. A diet of plain root vegetables and beans leads to appetite fatigue fast. Lovage keeps food tasting like food, and it gives you a year-round seasoning from a plant that takes care of itself. Number 8. Sunchoke, the perennial potato that produces 5 to 10 pounds per plant. You already know about the problems with potatoes in a long-term food scenario. You have to replant them every year. You need to store seed potatoes. You have to hill, weed, and manage them through the season. And they're vulnerable to disease. Jerusalem artichoke, also called sunchoke, solves all of that. One sunchoke tuber planted in spring turns into 5 to 10 pounds of calorie-dense tubers by fall. Those tubers stay in the ground through winter, meaning the ground itself is your storage, no root cellar required. You dig them as needed, even under snow. Next spring, the tubers you left in the ground regrow automatically. You never replant. Sunchokes are native to North America and built for harsh conditions. Poor soil, drought, shade, freezing temperatures, none of it stops them. In fact, Your biggest challenge will be keeping them contained. Once they establish, they spread aggressively. Plant them in a dedicated bed with barriers or in a spot where spreading is acceptable. The tubers taste slightly sweet and nutty, like a cross between a potato and a water chestnut. Roast them, mash them, slice them raw into salads, or add them to soups. They're high in inulin, a prebiotic fiber that feeds your gut microbiome. Start with small portions while your digestive system adjusts. Planting is effortless. Put tubers 4 to 6 inches deep, 12 inches apart, in spring. They'll grow 6 to 10 feet tall and bloom with bright yellow sunflower-like flowers. After the first frost kills the tops, they're ready to dig. Why it's on the list? Sunchoke is the closest thing to a set-it-and-forget-it calorie crop that exists. Once it's in the ground, it produces forever with zero inputs. That's not an exaggeration. It's just what this plant does. Number 7. Multiplier onions. The self-dividing onion you never have to replant. Onions are a staple in virtually every cuisine on earth. They add flavor to everything. They have potent antimicrobial and immune-supporting compounds, and they store well. But standard onions are annuals. You need seeds or sets every single year. Multiplier onions, also called potato onions or bunching onions, eliminate that dependency permanently. Instead of forming one large bulb and dying, multiplier onions divide underground, forming a cluster of 6 to 12 bulbs from a single planted bulb. You harvest the cluster, eat most of them, and replant the smallest ones. The cycle continues indefinitely. No seeds, no sets, no catalog orders. Just a self-sustaining onion system that runs itself. Multiplier onions are cold-hardy to zone 3, tolerate poor soil, and ask for almost nothing beyond a sunny spot and occasional watering in the first season. The greens are edible as scallions from spring through fall. The bulbs are harvested in midsummer when the tops die back naturally, then stored in a cool, dry place for months. Planting is simple. Plant bulbs in fall or early spring, 2 inches deep and 6 inches apart in well-drained soil with full sun. Harvest bulbs in summer when tops die back. Sort them, eat the larger ones. Replant the smaller ones immediately or in fall. Year after year, your supply grows. Why it's on the list? Flavor and immune support from a plant that literally replicates itself and never needs to be purchased again. Once you establish a multiplier onion patch, you have onions for the rest of your life. Number 6. Ostrich fern. The wild perennial that produces pounds of fiddleheads. Ostrich fern, Matutia struthiopteris, is one of the most underused perennial food plants in North America. It grows wild across the northern United States and Canada. It's cold-hardy to zone 2, and it produces a highly nutritious spring vegetable fiddleheads every single year for decades, without any attention from you at all. Fiddleheads are the tightly curled young fronds of the ostrich fern harvested in early spring before they unfurl. They taste like a cross between asparagus and spinach, slightly earthy and rich, and they're loaded with omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin C, iron, and potassium. In a scenario where fresh spring nutrition is critical, fiddleheads deliver. One established ostrich fern crown can produce dozens of harvestable fiddleheads per season and will spread into a colony over time, giving you more food every year without additional planting. They thrive in moist, shaded spots, the kind of spots where nothing else will grow. Riverbanks, shaded corners, north-facing garden beds. They actually prefer low-light, moist conditions. Planting is easy. Buy divisions or crowns in spring. Plant 18 to 24 inches apart in moist, slightly acidic soil with full or partial shade. Keep them watered the first season. After that, they take care of themselves completely. Always cook fiddleheads before eating, steam or boil for at least 2 minutes. Why it's on the list? Ostrich fern fills the shaded, wet corners of your property that nothing else can use and turns them into a permanent, self-expanding spring food source. That's efficient land use, and efficiency is survival. Number 5. Hardy kiwi. The perennial fruit vine that produces hundreds of pounds. Most people hear _quote _2_ and think of tropical fruit. Hardy kiwi, Actinidia arguta, is a completely different animal. It's a vigorous, perennial vine that's cold-hardy to zone 3, survives temperatures below -25 degrees Fahrenheit, and once established, produces 50 to 100 pounds of fruit per mature vine every single year. The fruits are small, about the size of a grape, with smooth, edible skin. You don't peel them. Just pop them in your mouth like grapes. They taste sweet and tropical, like a cross between kiwi and strawberry. packed with vitamin C, roughly 5 times the concentration of a standard kiwi, vitamin E and potassium. In a long-term food scenario, fruit is one of the most critical and hardest to maintain calorie sources. Hardy kiwi gives you massive, reliable, calorie-dense fruit production from a vine that essentially runs itself once it's established. A single vine trained on a fence or trellis can produce fruit for 30 to 50 years. You need one male plant for every 6 to 8 female plants for pollination. Once they're established, which takes 3 to 5 years from planting, the yields are extraordinary. Planting. Buy plants from a nursery, making sure you get both male and female varieties. Plant in spring in well-drained soil with full sun and a sturdy trellis or fence for support. Prune every winter to keep growth manageable. Water during establishment, then largely leave them alone. Why it's on the list. 100 pounds of fruit per vine. Cold hardy to -25 degrees Fahrenheit. Produces for 50 years. There is no more productive fruit source per square foot of space, and once it's established, it's virtually self-sufficient. Number 4. Goji berry. The protein-containing berry that produces for 50 years, goji berry, Lycium barbarum, has been a staple food in China for over 2,000 years. Not just a superfood supplement, actual staple food eaten by people who depended on it for survival in harsh northern climates. That history matters because it tells you this plant is the real thing. Goji berry is a perennial shrub, cold hardy to zone 3, that produces enormous quantities of bright red berries starting in late summer and continuing through fall. One mature shrub, which reaches 8 to 10 feet tall, produces 5 to 8 pounds of berries annually. The berries contain complete protein, meaning they contain all 9 essential amino acids. That's almost unheard of in a fruit or berry, and it makes goji a critical plant for any long-term food system. The berries are also extremely high in beta-carotene, zeaxanthin, a critical compound for eye health, iron, and zinc. Eat them fresh, dried or boiled into soups and porridges. Dried goji berries store for over a year without refrigeration. Planting is simple. Buy seedlings or rooted cuttings. Plant in spring in well-drained soil in full sun. Space 5 to 6 feet apart. Water during the first season. Goji is drought-tolerant once established and actually produces better in lean soil rich. Over-fertilized soil makes the plant grow more leaves and fewer berries. Give it neglect, and it will reward you. Why it's on the list. Complete protein from a fruit shrub that lives for 50 years and thrives on neglect. In a food system where meat protein is unreliable, goji berry is irreplaceable. Number 3. Groundnut, the native perennial vine. With 17% protein. This is the crop that shocks people when they hear about it, because it sounds too good to be true. American groundnut, Apios americana, is a native North American perennial vine that produces edible tubers underground like a potato. Except these tubers contain 15 to 17% protein by dry weight. That's 3 times the protein of a regular potato, higher than sweet potato, comparable to many legumes. Native Americans across the eastern United States depended on groundnut as a staple food. Early colonial settlers survived their first winters in America, largely because of this plant. Then somehow it disappeared from mainstream cultivation entirely, which is one of the most inexplicable gaps in American food culture. Here's the full picture. Groundnut is a nitrogen-fixing legume vine, so it improves your soil while it produces tubers. It's cold hardy to zone 3. It grows in sun or partial shade. It prefers moist soil. It produces fragrant reddish-brown flowers in summer and spreads slowly by underground runners, forming a permanent, expanding food source. The tubers taste nutty and slightly sweet. Boil them, roast them, mash them, or slice them into stews. They store in the ground through winter. One small tuber becomes a pound of food in the first year, and 5 or more pounds by year 3. Planting. Buy tubers from native plant nurseries or specialty seed companies. Plant 3 inches deep, 12 inches apart, near a fence or trellis for the vine to climb. Mulch the soil. Keep it moist the first season. After establishment, it takes care of itself. Why it's number 3. American groundnut gives you protein, calories, and soil fertility from one native perennial that's perfectly adapted to survive without you. In a long-term scenario where animal protein is scarce, this plant changes everything. Number 2. Asparagus, the spring crop that feeds your great-grandchildren. People are often surprised to find asparagus this high on the list. They think of it as a luxury vegetable, a restaurant food. But in terms of long-term food security, Asparagus may be the single most reliable perennial vegetable you can plant in the ground. Here's why. Asparagus emerges in early spring, often before the last frost, when nothing else in your garden is even close to producing. It is the first fresh vegetable of the season, delivering vitamins A, C, E, K, and folate when your body is most desperate for them, after months of living on stored food. A well-established asparagus bed 10 feet by 4 feet produces 10 to 20 pounds of spears per year across a 6 to 8 week harvest window. That's daily fresh vegetables through April and May from a planting that requires almost no work. No replanting, no tilling, no fertilizing, as long as you mulch with compost each fall. The lifespan of an established asparagus bed is 20 to 30 years. Not a typo. Plant it today and your children will harvest from it. Plant it this year and your grandchildren will harvest from it. That is not a garden plant. That is food infrastructure. Planting. Dig a trench 6 to 8 inches deep, 12 inches wide. Lay 1 or 2-year-old crowns at the bottom, 12 to 18 inches apart. Cover with 2 inches of soil and fill in gradually as plants grow. Don't harvest the first year and only harvest lightly in year 2. By year 3, harvest freely. Mulch heavily every fall with straw or compost. Why it's number 2. 3 decades of spring harvests from one planting. First, fresh vegetable of the year every year. Virtually zero maintenance once established. If you only plant one perennial vegetable, make it asparagus. Number 1. The mulberry tree. The one plant that can feed your entire family by itself. Everything else on this list is important. Number 1 is in a different category entirely. The mulberry tree, Morus rubra or Morus alba, is the single most productive food plant you can grow in North America, and almost no one has one. Here's what a single mature mulberry tree does. It produces 200 to 500 pounds of fruit per year, not per decade, per year. Starting in late spring and continuing for 4 to 6 weeks, the tree drops sweet, deeply nutritious berries continuously. You cannot eat them all. You cannot process them fast enough. You will be drowning in food. The berries are sweet, slightly tart, and rich in vitamin C, iron, resveratrol, and anthocyanins. They contain more protein per gram than most fruits. They're high in fiber and complex carbohydrates. Eat them fresh, dry them, ferment them, make jam, make wine, or, and this is the part most people miss, use them to feed chickens, pigs, and ducks. A mulberry tree placed near your poultry yard essentially feeds your animals for free for an entire month every year. Mulberry trees are cold hardy to zone 4 or 5 depending on variety. Morus rubra is slightly hardier. They grow in poor soil. They tolerate drought, neglect, urban pollution, and partial shade. They ask for almost nothing. White mulberry, Morus alba, is the hardiest, most productive, and most adaptable variety. Red mulberry, Morus rubra, is native to North America and slightly more nutritious. Either works. Both are extraordinary. They start producing fruit in 3 to 5 years from a young tree, reach full production in 10 years, and continue producing for over 100 years. Planting is simple. Buy a 1 to 2-year-old tree from a nursery. Plant in spring in any well-drained soil with full sun. Dig a hole twice as wide as the root ball and the same depth. Backfill, water deeply, and mulch the base. Keep it watered the first summer. After that, a mulberry tree is one of the most self-sufficient food plants that exists. No spraying, no pruning required, no pollination concerns. Mulberries are largely self-fertile. Just plant it, wait a few years, and then spend every June picking the most abundant fruit harvest your family has ever seen. Why it's number 1. No other plant on this list or any list produces as much food per acre per year with as little input as a mature mulberry tree. It feeds your family, feeds your animals, builds your soil through leaf drop, and produces for a century. It is not a garden plant. It is a food system in one organism. 12 plants. Plant them once. Feed your family for the rest of your life. Here's the reality check you need to hear right now. Every single plant on this list takes time to establish. Asparagus takes 3 years. Hardy kiwi takes 5. A mulberry tree takes a decade to reach full production. That means the time to plant is not when things go wrong, it's right now. While you can still walk into a nursery, order from a catalog, or find a neighbor with divisions to share. In 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, when the people who didn't plant are scrambling, you will already be harvesting. Your family will already be fed. That's not survivalism. That's just smart long-term thinking. Plant perennials, build systems that outlast you. That's what this channel is about. What plant are you putting in the ground first? Drop it in the comments and hit subscribe if you're serious about building a food system that feeds your family through whatever comes next.